sympathy for Mikey McCoy. I have no sympathy for Tyler Boyer. I think telling the truth is a very easy thing to do when you have a microphone. And if you don't want to tell the truth, it just makes you look more suspicious. And I can give you an example of that. The only reason that people lie. Anytime you lie, it's because you're covering up the truth. You're engaging in cover-up, even if it's white lie.
The world still hasn't stopped buzzing about the Charlie Kirk case. What began as a tragic shooting has spiraled into a tangle of secrets, power moves, and accusations shaking the conservative landscape. It all unfolded on September 10, 2025, at Utah Valley University. Charlie Kirk was in the middle of his American comeback tour, speaking to a crowd of more than 3,000 supporters, flags waving, chants echoing, energy high. Then, at exactly 12:23 p.m., everything shattered. A single gunshot cracked through the air, striking Charlie in the neck. The bullet came from a nearby rooftop, clean, precise, almost professional. Panic ripped through the hall as people screamed and scrambled for cover. Kirk was rushed to the hospital, but doctors couldn't save him. The FBI acted quickly. Just 33 hours later, they announced they had the shooter, Tyler Robinson, a 22-year-old former Utah State student who openly despised Charlie's politics. He had even confessed on Discord and to his own parents. Case closed, or so it seemed. But almost immediately, the questions began.
Way that, like, okay, you're saying something that's actually factually inaccurate,
right,
according to the narrative. Now, let's be real clear. I don't necessarily think they know what's going on yet. There's a lot of weird shit going on with this.
I know.
So another angle of a potential shooter of where this shot could have come from.
Talking about Charlie Kirk now?
About Charlie Kirk. That's the one, right? Is that the one we're talking
that
about?
Conversation?
Yeah, that was, and from my opinion, Patrick, this dude and a bunch of shooters and a bunch of snipers, and me and Tom actually had a conversation last night. Never go with the official narrative.
See this, Tom?
Yes, I did. I was watching a report by what appeared to be a very rational and specific ex-military gentleman from Turkey that was talking about the forensics.
This guy?
Yeah, that's the guy. Look, there's another one.
There's another guy. This guy is equally sane, and he's saying, hey, look, that appears to me to be an exit wound. And when I go and look at this, by the way, Kash Patel said on Sunday that the FBI is looking at leads, including the location of the shot and the angle of the bullet, potentially a second shooter. And that's what Kash Patel said on the Sunday news show. So this does not appear, Pat, that it's one crazy
person. Did say that Kash Patel said there's a second shooter?
Yes, sir.
The timeline didn't quite make sense. Witnesses gave conflicting stories. The suspect seems like he's being framed too.
So I'm putting together a picture, and the obvious thing to me, if I am a detective, is you're only lying because you're hiding something, right? And it seems to me like they're trying to not set the very people that were pressuring him. They want him to be this committed Christian Zionist. He never faltered on it. If you want that money to keep going, are these donors still pressuring you? Now, why is Bibi Netanyahu lying? I don't know. But what I do know is we aren't getting the truth about anything. Then you couple that with Turning Point is lying, covering. That could just be financial, trying to protect the finances after Charlie, who knows. But then you add the Fed messages that they didn't want to give us a time about. The person's writing like they're in, 1887. Just young, gay 20-year-olds writing like we're in 1887. It's a nonsense. They have no explanation for that. I know that makes no sense. Persons, I've got contact with family. They're telling me that Feds are even lying about why he turned himself in. They basically were told, we'll slam down your doors, or you can come in peacefully. What are you going to do? Like, hey, we've got you no matter what. You have two options here. He turned himself in, the family friend. I mean, there isn't a single thing they have told us.
But the timeline didn't add up. Witnesses offered conflicting accounts, details clashed, and crucial moments didn't match the official story. Even the suspect, the supposed confessed shooter, started to look more like someone being set up than the mastermind behind a precision hit.
Wife is already doing podcasts. Look at this. What are you talking about, your husband?
No way. Tell me she's already doing pod, bro. Your husband just got massive. Well, my uncle died. I was in a daze for years. Like, I couldn't even speak, bro. I couldn't even talk at his funeral. He was like my brother. It was so devastating to me. He was young, bro. We were very close. And it was the only time in my life that I couldn't find the word. Just thinking about it makes me sad. Let alone your husband gets executed in front of the whole world. Let's cue the fireworks. And remember when I kept saying something just doesn't seem right. I was scared to talk more that day because I didn't want to be insensitive. It's very fishy. This now confirms it to be 100%. If this was me there, I would have been.
And then there's the strangest part of all, Charlie's wife, Erika Kirk. While the nation spirals with grief and suspicion, she's remained eerily calm, almost untouched by the tragedy. Her reaction, or lack of it, has only fueled the fire.
The pressure he was receiving from pro-Israel Zionist donors to Turning Point USA.
Charlie definitely was not someone who liked to be bullied by donors, as we saw in those text messages.
Their Jewish donors to TPUSA played into the worst stereotypes of Jewish people.
Charlie writes, Jewish donors play into all of the stereotypes. I cannot and will not be bullied like this.
A few moments later. You know, I'm talking to lawyers. I think I'm a lawyer with my background. I work for a federal appeals judge. I know a thing or two about United States constitutional law. I think that we have a potentially serious case here for defamation, and I'm very much speaking with lawyers, and we'll see what happens.
Well done, Joshy. Well done. Very good, Joshy. Try your best to curb your Zionism. I know it's hard. Do your best. Too funny. Also, I want to shout out John Miller on X. He made me laugh. I mean, I was really laughing when I saw his tweet about Josh Hammer threatening to sue me. He just wrote this, and it said it all. He said, "They really trying to make us believe this is the good guy." LMAO. Yeah, I mean, he just looks like a Bond supervillain. That's just what he looks like. And by the way, that's a lot of words to say what I always say. Like, we don't know, but we know. And on Josh Hammer, yeah, we know. You're not the good guy, okay? You have to believe in your gut. I keep telling you guys over and over again, your gut matters more, right? Your subconscious picks up on things before your conscience does. Which brings me to dreams, by the way, because before I went on break, many people were triggered because I discussed on a previous show a dream that I had, a very vivid dream, whereupon Charlie told me he had been betrayed. And so he's been betrayed.
Then, just 8 days after Charlie's death, Turning Point USA announced that Erika would be stepping in as CEO. The board claimed it was Charlie's final wish, but online, nobody was buying it. Critics called the whole thing a grift. They pointed out how no normal person would turn their husband's memorial into a full-blown spectacle, complete with pyrotechnics, only a week after he was murdered. People argued that Charlie, known for his strict, traditional roles brand of Christianity, likely didn't leave behind some grand succession plan. What he probably wanted most was not to be shot in the neck. Meanwhile, what Erika seemed to want was to keep the machine and the money rolling. Then Candace jumped back on stream with a new angle. According to her, this wasn't a story about love at all, it was about power. She even revealed a message Charlie had allegedly sent her just days before he was killed. In it, he warned that the Israeli lobby was pushing him to run their agenda, and he refused. That single message flipped the narrative completely.
It's this psychological operation that sweeps in if you do not actually peddle certain talking points or certain perspectives, particularly in Hollywood. I didn't understand what he was saying at that time. Then I went through it politically, and I was going, what is actually happening? I mean, peer pressure. You're going to do this or you're going to lose everything. We saw that even in Charlie Kirk's text messages. There is not a single person that bent over more for the pro-Israel cause than Charlie Kirk, but it wasn't enough because they were so angry. Dave, particularly Josh Hammer, was angry. Dave
was really at war with the Israel lobby and with all of the Zionist handlers around him. They were threatening him. They were pulling funds from him. He had basically gotten to the point where he was like, I don't support any of this anymore. And immediately,
Candace went even further, claiming Charlie had begun questioning some of Turning Point USA's biggest donors, especially those tied to Israel policy. And according to her, that put him on the wrong side of very powerful people. People who, she suggested, wanted him silenced.
This has been my obsession since we all watched Charlie Kirk be executed in front of the world, and then a lot of people lie about it, and a lot of people who were not acting right or grieving right, who were his closest comrades and business partners. And let's be frank, as I get inch closer and closer to discovering the truth, we should recognize that this is pretty dangerous stuff. And my theory now, I feel confident stating that Charlie Kirk was taken out by something much bigger than Turning Point USA organization that he was running, and certainly much bigger than Tyler Robinson on the Low C rooftop, who I don't even think was even stepped foot on the campus that day. And you have to be pro-Israel. That's kind of the vibes that they're putting down, okay? That happens July 11th, and now our plane is coming back from Egypt. Just 9 days later, it goes through Omaha, Nebraska at 11:37 a.m. departs, and it heads over to Lincoln, Nebraska, and it stays there for 6 days. I would love to know, and again, anybody who has the ability to pull the files, maybe you just work at the airport, I really would like to know who was on that plane. I think this July 20th date is very important. Very important, okay? I think the post-TPUSA conference dates are critical to what happened here, okay? Then Charlie speaks to New York, and after that, he heads up to New York in the Hamptons, and Charlie Kirk himself, described it as an intervention. Seth Dillon is lying through his teeth, okay? People that were there said Seth Dillon was rowdy, pushing Charlie on his views on Israel. Charlie himself described it as an intervention that was staged over his viewpoints on Israel, okay? And maybe they were going to see if they could fix him. You know how every episode of Intervention ends. They ask you if you want to go to rehab because they love you, okay? They read the letters. Ooh, Charlie, I remember you. You were so brave. You were so brave, and you loved Israel, and you understood that your job is to be a good little goy and do what we say. Oh, I miss you. Do you want to go to rehab? But that phone call wasn't coming in from mom or dad. It was coming in from Bibi Netanyahu. That's kind of terrifying, actually. Bibi Netanyahu is like pretending to be your friend. Hey, come to Israel. How do we know that happened? Because Bibi told us himself. So this is not in dispute, right? Bibi raced out of the gate to establish Charlie Kirk as like Israel's top goy. And he said probably too much. He said he called him 2 weeks ago and he invited him to Israel. And the part that he left out was Charlie declined. So when he got the phone call to go to figurative rehab, Charlie said, no, I'm good, actually. Bibi offered to fund Turning Point to the next level, okay? Andrew Colbert should be able to confirm that, yes or no. Don't dance around it. I don't like with dancing him and Alex said, oh, this, blah. It's a yes, okay? Take it to the next level. With what money, though, actually? It is relevant, and it is true, that Charlie did not know where the money was coming from. That's why he established Doge, okay? He did not know where the money was coming from or where it was going to. That sounds to me like a very sophisticated money laundering operation could have been happening under his nose.
The theory spread like wildfire. Podcasts, TikToks, and even Joe Rogan jumped in. On his show, Rogan slowed the Utah footage down frame by frame. Something's not right here, he said, and the clip exploded, pulling in millions of views overnight. At that point, the question wasn't who pulled the trigger anymore. It was who wanted Charlie gone. Candace Owens didn't stop chasing that question, and where it led her was downright chilling. According to her, Charlie had been tracked for a disturbingly long time before the murder, watched, monitored, and followed in ways that no one could explain.
Coincidence. Hold on to that thought. Did you know that Charlie Kirk's father, Robert W. Kirk, was actually the architect for Trump Towers? Also, did you know that Erika Kirk won Miss Arizona USA in 2012? Don't forget, Donald Trump ran Miss America from 1996 until 2015. Seeing the correlation here? I'm not saying age difference is a big thing, but did you know Erika was 5 years Charlie Sr.? But this is where coincidences aren't coincidences. People, this was so arranged. And there's so much more to Erika. Kind of like how she was all into basketball, didn't want to be all girly, never liked to dress up, even cut all her hair off, and ended up being Miss USA. How does that happen? How do you go from sports to Miss USA? And then they meet at a Turning Point event in 2008, where she's interviewing for a job for Turning Point. Solidified.
And that's when the story took its next wild turn. The deeper people dug into Erika's past, the more they began to question whether she was really who she claimed to be.
Affectionate hug she gave to J.D. Vance.
And perhaps the most heavily scrutinized moment of Erika Kirk's behavior after Charlie's death came during a seemingly ordinary appearance, one that, on replay, felt anything but ordinary. It was a moment that sparked more suspicion than sympathy, and people online tore it apart frame by frame.
He's got his hand on her lower back, and I think he immediately just taps her like this to kind of bring that level of like closeness and what it suggests down just a little bit, like tap tap, hey, we're friends here type thing. He's also the one to break away from the hug first and to look away first. These are huge indications. So you'll notice he leans out like this first. His hand makes a pit stop on her waist over here, which does suggest closeness, a close bond. But as he backs away, he almost instantly breaks eye contact as he looks up, getting ready to address the audience, while she breaks away second and looks at him. So at the very least, there are a few little details coming from him that suggest that he's trying to manage a little bit the way this hug comes off. And as a politician, he's constantly aware of what the public perceives. So in this case, as she's saying, a very dear friend of mine with that eye block, it's likely that this is positive. She's trying to hold on or emphasize how dear this relationship is, how positive it is, how lucky she is to have this friend in her life. Then, after this moment, she says, and his wife, as the expression changes. The smile goes away, she looks up like this, and we see this kind of jittery no with her head, with a very serious look on her face. Now, it's very important to note that with behavioral analysis, we focus a lot on baseline. We're looking for deviations of that baseline that come in clusters. These things are very, very important. So for Erika Kirk, this whole no gesture with a very serious face, especially when she's talking about something either emotional or serious, is very much part of her baseline. Here are a few examples. They don't all look exactly the same, but they have that commonality where there's this jitter of the head like this with a neutral or serious expression.
Remember, being the courageous generation that you are, stand up for the truth, love your family fearlessly, love your spouse fearlessly, love this country, send her. You're worried about losing a friend, you might. I lost my friend.
A behavioral analyst known as the behavior arts even broke down Erika and Vance's body language during that hug. The analysis was unsettling. Every gesture, every glance, every millisecond slowed down and examined, raising even more questions about what was really going on behind the scenes.
Yes, my wife did not grow up Christian. I think it's fair to say that she grew up in a Hindu family, but not a particularly religious family in either direction. In fact, when I met my wife, we were both, I would consider myself an agnostic or an atheist. And that's what I think she would have considered herself as well. You know, everybody has to come to their own arrangement. The way that we've come to our arrangement is, she's my best friend, we talk to each other about this stuff. So, we decided to raise our kids Christian. Our two oldest kids who go to school, they go to a Christian school. Our 8-year-old did his first communion about a year ago. That's the way that we have come to our arrangement. The only advice I can give is you just got to talk to the person that God has put you with, and you've got to make those decisions as a family unit. For us, it works out. Now, most Sundays, Usha will come with me to church. As I've told her, and I've said publicly, and I'll say now in front of 10,000 of my closest friends, do I hope eventually that she is somehow moved by the same thing that I was moved in by church? Yeah, I honestly do wish that. Because I believe in the Christian gospel, and I hope eventually my wife comes to see it the same way. But if she doesn't, then God says everybody has free will, and so that doesn't cause a problem for me. That's something you work out with your friends, with your family, with the person that you love. Again, one of the most important Christian principles is that you respect free will. Usha's closer to the priests who baptized me than maybe I am. They talk about this stuff. My attitude is, you figure this stuff out as a family, and you trust in God to have a plan, and you try to follow it as best as you can. And that's
Once the full video went viral, people started dissecting every second of it. Her grip, his posture, the strange way Vance brushed his hand across his hip afterward, nothing went unnoticed. And that's when J.D. Vance got dragged straight into the storm. Already a controversial figure, his unexpected closeness to Erika ignited instant rumors of an affair. And the fact that he'd publicly said he wished his actual wife would convert to Christianity, that only poured gasoline on the fire.
Have it now on a very well-placed authoritative source that the FBI is putting an absurd amount of pressure right now on the authorities in Utah and also the rest of the government in Utah to come out and to say that the Charlie Kirk case is closed. They want it over. They want Charlie's assassination to be officially ruled lone gunman. It was a lone gunman that did that. Nobody else is involved. Now, why would they? Why would they want that? Right? What are they saying, at least to the authorities? Are they saying like, this is the reason? And I'm sure they're not coming out and being honest or saying something that might ring truer to us, the public, which would be them saying, well, we know who did this and we want to protect those people, so close the case. What they're actually saying instead is essentially, if you don't close the case against Charlie Kirk and rule it a lone gunman, then it might mess up our prosecution against Tyler Robinson. That feels a little bit to me like moral blackmail. Hey, man, we're not hiding anything, but we've got this guy Tyler Robinson. If you don't close this case, then it might harm our chances of locking this guy up. Yeah, I am sure that they are being just moral.
Sources close to him allegedly claimed the marriage was already cracking. Late-night calls, vague excuses, and text messages that felt a little too familiar to be innocent. Usher's background as a first-generation Indian American from San Diego only added another layer of tension, especially in political circles obsessed with optics. Soon, speculation exploded online. Were Erika and J.D. Vance positioning themselves to marry each other to strengthen Vance's chances for a 2028 presidential run? Could it happen? With Vance openly wishing his wife were Christian and dropping comments that sounded like the early stages of a public breakup, and Erika saying she sees her late husband Charlie in Vance, people began to wonder if the two of them, along with their PR teams, were quietly laying the groundwork. But whether that future actually unfolds, time will tell. And the drama doesn't stop there, not even close. Because according to Candace Owens, she has even more proof that the FBI may be trying to cover up what really happened to Charlie.
Absolutely no video which shows Tyler Robinson firing the weapon or even taking aim at Charlie Kirk. In fact, the individual who filmed the footage of the shooter on the roof, the lone video that exists of the shooter on the roof, also told me that he doesn't think that Tyler Robinson is the guy. So how's that going to work for an eyewitness account? When he reported the shooter on the roof to Utah on the campus, he was clear that the person was wearing an entirely different outfit than the ones that they're currently trying to claim that Tyler wore on that day. Remember, Tyler was just supposed to be wearing a t-shirt and some jeans. He says no, he was in tactical gear. The person that I saw was in tactical gear. Also, that eyewitness told me that that gun doesn't even match what I saw. And like I said, this individual definitively has experience with guns. He teaches people how to fire guns. So according to him and what he observed, if he's going to be brought into this court case, they're saying they want to, they want to bring charges against Tyler. He's going to testify and say, no, that doesn't look like the gun. That doesn't look like the person. So how's this going to work? Also, according to the individual that told me this, regarding the feds trying to push for this case closure, feds don't even have any footage that explains how exactly the rifle in particular got onto the roof. That stuns me. Stunning information, right? Because all we have is, well, in the indictment, he dropped onto the roof at 12:15 p.m. Tyler Robinson just dropped onto the roof. I guess in our minds, we assumed on the basis of the picture that they released the sole picture or set of pictures from the same moment of him walking up stairs. We assumed that he, like I said, stanky-legged it, the whole stanky leg all the way up onto the rooftop. That was our perception. But it turns out, according to my source, they don't know how the rifle got onto the roof. The source says that it was too fragmented to match Tyler's rifle, so they don't have even the bullet. And let us not forget that Tyler himself has not confessed to anything. And that part also didn't make sense. He said they brought him in, the last man puts up $1 million, Tyler's dad gets the sheriff friend to come over, and they say he did it, and police come and they bring him in, bring Tyler Robinson in, but Tyler Robinson doesn't confess? So how did you arrest him? Does that make sense? How could you make an arrest if you didn't have a confession? You would have to have evidence, and the evidence can't be trust my dad, bro. You can't. If I just bring in a random person, if I say, oh look, Skylar just committed this crime, and Skylar says no, I didn't, and he doesn't confess, the police can't just make an arrest. You can just arrest Skylar. Nothing is making sense at all. It has not made sense from the very beginning. Okay, and that's because feds are involved, and I believe the feds know exactly what happened. In fact, I don't think it's a stretch of imagination when we examine history to assume that they maybe even had some foreknowledge. Not everybody, obviously, because some people are trying to get the information out and are trying to figure out what happened, but we know that there are people that are a part of that apparatus who are terrible human beings, who we do not want ruling over us, and yet they do.
The official explanation, she said, was that keeping the case open might interfere with another prosecution, the one against Tyler Robinson, the man authorities insist was Charlie's killer. But to Candace, that didn't sound like legal reasoning at all. It sounded like moral blackmail. In her words, the message was basically, if you don't close this case, you might ruin our chance to lock up Tyler Robinson. Except there's one massive problem. There is no video, none, showing Tyler Robinson firing a weapon.